Hi, my name is Hiram Champlin, and I'd first like to thank you for the support, for the opportunity to speak about what many to be a great injustice. I own a home in Scottsdale House Complex located at 4800 North 68th Street. Scottsdale House is a condominium community of 263 homes located on 40 acres that was built in the 1960s, and I am on the board of our homeowners association. In December of 2022, we reported a crime to your police department. The alleged crime was the theft of over $1.6 million from our HOA by the general manager and the bookkeeper. We completed the detailed embezzlement packet at the request of the detective, and 6 subpoenas were issued to banks and credit card companies in April of last year. Since then, nothing has been done on the case from our perspective. We are told that one of the banks, Desert Financial Credit Union, has not responded to the subpoena and that all we can do is wait, even though it's been 10 months since they received the subpoena. We filed an employee dishonesty claim at roughly the same time we filed the police report. We proved that claim and have collected over $700,000 starting in February of last year. The insurance company did not dispute any of our claim. Our policy only went back 2 years, which prevented us from collecting more. My point is that if we can prove our case in a matter of months to an insurance company, why is justice taking so long with the Scottsdale police? Let me be clear, I have nothing but admiration for Detective Stephen Negron, but it is apparent that he has a work overload, and it is hurting our investigation. The purpose of my talk tonight is to respectfully ask the City Council to add more support to our case. It is not right that after 14 long months, the 500+ victims of Scottsdale House, most of whom are elderly, are still waiting for justice with no end in sight. Thank you.
So go ahead, David Smith. Great to see you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is David Smith. I'm here tonight to urge you to honor a promise that was made to citizens when they supported a sales tax initiative almost 30 years ago. In the special election that we held on May 23 of 1995, voters were asked, and you remember this, to authorize a temporary 0.2% increase in our local sales tax rate to acquire preserved land. And in 1995, of course, nobody knew how long it might take to acquire preserved land, much less how much it might cost. And so the voters were promised that the tax would remain in effect for 30 years or less. And that phraseology is in the ballot language, 30 years or less. It's in the descriptive title, and it's in the ballot that tells them what a yes vote would imply. And then, of course, 9 years later, in 2004, voters were again asked to approve a temporary sales tax for the preserve, and this time it was 0.15%, both to buy land and to make improvements. Surely today we can conclude that the original mission to acquire preserved land has been accomplished. We enjoy a preserve of 30,500 acres, most of which was put into the preserve 10 years ago. And surely today we can also conclude that the original mission to have the debt that's issued for this preserved land defeased or taken care of, that's been adequately provided for. And why do I say that? This year's operating budget predicts that the preserve fund will have a balance of $130 million of cash. And if we calculate that cash plus just 2 years of the 0.15 small preserve tax, that would completely repay all the debt that exists. And in fact, if we continue to calculate what that 0.15 preserve tax might accumulate to in the remaining life it has, the balance will grow to $250 million by the time that tax expires, and absolutely no debt. Our citizens were promised that the .2 tax was temporary. And more than that, they were promised that it was going to be for 30 years or less. We should celebrate the fact that the mission was met in less than 30 years. And I urge this council to do what you have the sole authority to do, and that is stop the .2 preserve tax. Do it now, and restore in the process the respect of our citizens for having honored a promise made to them many, many years ago. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. At this point, I'll just make another call for Bob Lettieri. So I don't see him. Then let's go to Mason Gates. Thank you. Please state your place of residence and 3 minutes. Good to meet you.
Hi there, my name is Mason Gates. I live off of 68th and Thomas. All right. Good evening, council members and fellow residents of Scottsdale. I come to you today to voice my firm opposition to future nonsensical road diet propositions in the city of Scottsdale. As a resident of South Scottsdale, located close to the intersection of Thomas and 68th, during my commutes both to and from work each day, I have the pleasure of witnessing unnecessary congestion on the newly renovated 68th Street, which cost Scottsdale taxpayers an estimated $1.9 million. But it's not just me. After chatting with the owner of Beg Bakery, Rich Benura, he stated that he often sees buses, semi-trucks, and other vehicles parked in the bike lane that is intended for cyclists. This can pose a grave danger for cyclists who need to avoid parked vehicles by swerving into traffic lanes where drivers may not expect to see them. When I asked Mr. Benura his initial thoughts when the City Council had approached him about this road diet idea, he stated that he wasn't initially approached for preliminary conversations and that, quote, had he not been vocal about it, then he would have been overlooked, end quote. He also added, the government is going to do what the government is going to do. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but statements like that concern me immensely. As a small business owner myself, if I can't trust that my elected officials will be consultative in their representation, then why would I want to keep my business in the city? Moreover, it's crucial that we acknowledge the fact that according to a 2022 survey from Statista's Global Consumer Survey, 76% of American commuters use a personal vehicle to travel from home to work, while only 10% ride their bike and 11% rely on public transport. This isn't merely an economic concern, but it's also a long-term logistical nightmare as well. If the same council members voting in favor of high-density developments are also prioritizing the reduction of traffic lanes, I have to ask, what are we doing here? Unfortunately, the 68th Street project is just one of many symptoms of a 15-plus-year activist campaign that has sought to impose road diets on Scottsdale's formerly highly efficient road network. The council will quickly realize that they have made a significant mistake if they continue genuflecting to the loud demands of the bicycle lobby in exchange for the transportation needs of Scottsdale car drivers. It's high time that the council starts focusing on common sense policy rather than pushing random, unwanted agendas onto the residents of this great city. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have Mr. Bob Lettieri here. Hi, sir.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Bob Lettieri, and I have lived in McCormick Ranch for 25 years. As I meet and speak with residents in McCormick Ranch and Scottsdale Ranch, I offer them voice their concerns about the City Council's street reclassification, also known as road diets, eliminating car lanes in favor of bicycle lanes in their neighborhoods. So to address the neighbors' demand that the City Council stop making traffic worse, I am presenting a citizen's petition tonight signed by more than 200 neighbors. When Scottsdale residents are polled, they ask that their number one concern is traffic congestion, but the city continues to ignore them and fails to find solutions to the problem. City Hall keeps making bad decisions that blight our town with plain Jane, multi-story apartments that will further congest traffic on our streets. And to add insult to injury, the City Council has ignored road diets to remove car lanes and to add bicycle lanes. I am afraid our quality of life is going to continue to deteriorate if the city doesn't change their policy on road diets and find solutions to fix our traffic problems. We are requesting that the City Council consider our petition.
Thank you, and we will address that later in our agenda. Good to meet you, sir.